All right, so let's start out with tell me a little bit about yourself. Just not educational wise or anything like just like where are you from? What'd you grow up doing? That type of stuff.
For sure. So I'm originally from St. Louis, and I have a background in Olympic weightlifting. As soon as I went to college, I went to Truman State University, which is a small D2 school up in northeastern Missouri. I didn't make the
Wait,
baseball
scratch.
team when I tried
Hold
out.
on 1 second. So do
Uh,
you hunt? Because
what's that?
Missouri, do you hunt? Because Missouri has some
Yeah,
huge
it's funny you
bucks up
ask.
there.
I do not hunt. Yeah, it's really funny. I never really got into it. I think
Man,
I've got
that's
a bunch of friends that do it. My boss that I work with, Travis Neff, he's the owner of Boost Physical Therapy and Sports Performance. He's a
yeah,
crazy hunter. He loves doing that.
man.
I have a ton of patients that all hunt, and that I've never been hunting. I
It's
think the
like a
big thing.
sin not to hunt in Missouri. I mean, oh my gosh,
It
bro.
seriously is. I really think the biggest thing is I love sleeping in the
Mm,
mornings, and I don't want
yeah.
to get up like 3 in the morning and go hunt.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. All right,
That's the
back to what you're saying. Back to what you're saying.
yeah. So I wanted to really play baseball in college. That was my big thing, and I ended up hurting myself during the tryouts, and just never made the baseball team. And instantly, that's when Facebook first came out.
Hmm.
And I'm scrolling through Facebook on my dorm, and I come across there's the Iron Dogs Olympic weightlifting team, and I was like, oh hell, I'll go check these guys out. And
Because I'm not going hunting.
exactly, seriously, so I got to find something to fill my time, right? So I went and checked them out, and instantly was hooked.
Hmm.
And I mean, I had done like cleans and a lot of lifting in high school, right, with football, and I really enjoyed it. So I was like, oh, check this out, and I was instantly hooked. And that was the fall of 2005. So I've been competing in Olympic weightlifting since then, and I freaking love it. I mean,
You're act
everything about it.
you're
I mean, the
actively competing
training.
now.
I'm actively competing right now. I promised my wife last year I went to the 2016
Oh.
American Open,
Hmm.
and obviously, working 50 plus hours a week and doing all the squat university stuff on the side. Me and my wife were married a year and a half ago, so we moved into a new house. There's a lot of stuff going on, so me
Yeah,
trying to ask her to also, give me some time to do two-a-days and stuff like that wasn't working out for our relationship as much. So
I can't
I told her, I
imagine.
promised her after the last national meet I went to, I said I'll tone it down. I want to do still one meet a year, just to have fun, have something, a goal to work towards.
Hmm.
Um, so probably from here on out, just doing like a local meet a year and just having fun with it, loving training. But I'm not going to actively try to compete as much as possible. But I think
Okay.
it's probably God's way also of telling me, hey, it's time to move on to other parts of your life and focus on helping people more than trying to be a competitor as much as I used to be.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I guess we all hit those stages. I'm still looking for it.
Uh,
I'm pretty good at doing everything else but moving on in life, I guess.
yeah, and I just turned 30, so I guess I got a couple years, and then I can become a master at in Olympic weightlifting, so I can maybe start competing then again.
See, that's what I'm hoping for, that whole CrossFit thing. They're talking about going to
Yeah.
that whole 835, and I'm like, a year left, you know? So, so anyway, so you ended up going to school. You got a doctorate in physical therapy, right? Wait, how exactly do I say your last name? I'm gonna mess it up if
It's
I.
really tough. It's Horshig.
Yeah, I was looking at that, adding syllables and stuff.
Yeah,
Horshig,
yeah,
Horshig.
Horshig. Well, yeah, with a hard G on the end.
Man, your wife must really love you. I bet you heard that last name was a lot easier.
Seriously, when she told me she would take my last name, I was very very pleased. It's not the easiest last name.
Right. So, you went to DPT school. Where
Yes.
did you go? Where did you go to do that, and when did you
Yes.
graduate there and stuff like that?
So I went to the University of Missouri, or Mizzou, right in Columbia, Missouri, middle of the state. And while I was there, you obviously have to go through, no matter what school you're going through different residency programs and whatnot, clinical rotations. I actually got to do the first of its kind with two of my friends, where we had a partnership with the strength and conditioning staff for like all the different athletic performance teams.
Hmm.
So instead of working with the athletic trainers, I was getting up at 4 in the morning to get the football team ready, practicing with the softball team, doing all that from a strength and conditioning standpoint, and then being able to help out a couple athletes sort of like on a one-on-one basis with my physical therapy background. So that's how I sort of got hooked into all the sports side of things while I was still in school. And
Right.
then I graduated with my doctorate in 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So the question then would be, and I mean, because it's definitely something that's changed in my mind as my education level has increased. How has that changed, like the way that you look at the sports you've played,
Hmm.
baseball and stuff in the background,
Hmm.
or in the older days, and now Olympic lifting. Like, so how do you look at those differently? How exactly do you feel maybe about how Olympic lifting is, or how the training process
Hmm.
goes with the education that you have now versus when you just started and you were like, yeah, man, I just want to lift heavy weights, that type of thing.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is, and I think Olympic weightlifting has really brought it out in me is, to really excel in Olympic lifting, you have to have an emphasis on technique. It's all about technique. You
Yeah.
can't just come out there and try to lift really, really heavy if you've got shit technique, because eventually you're going to reach either the potential, is going to capsize, or you're going to get injured. And the same thing I think sort of, coincides with all the other sports. You see a lot of these kids that get out there with football and they try to just go really, really hard, and they don't have an emphasis on either their skill technique, their movement technique, the quality of their movement. And the same thing happens. As a physical therapist, I've been able to see a ton of torn ACLs.
Yeah.
you know um I think, as a society, we're getting, I think, somewhat upwards of 100,000 torn ACLs every single year, which is a crazy stat. And when you think about it, 75% of those roughly are non-contact injuries.
Yeah.
So right there, no one's touching them, and they're sustaining these horrible injuries. And especially girls, I think girls who participate in basketball and soccer are like 2 to 3 times more likely to tear their ACL, which is crazy in itself. And, when we look at these girls and do some screenings on them, we find, their squatting ability, first off, sucks. A ton of high school girls, they can't even do a regular body weight squat without their knees coming in, let
Right.
alone try to do like a small single leg squat, and that's like, just a prerequisite to being able to move well. And then you throw them out on a basketball field or basketball court, soccer field, and then ask them to perform to their level. It's no wonder why we see all these injuries. So I think, the basics of Olympic weightlifting, emphasizing, movement quality first while we're trying to perform, can really carry over to all these other sports. And what happens is we see a decrease in injury rate when we do, and also allow ourselves to basically perform at a higher level in the end.
Yeah. I think what you touched on really, excuse me, I think I'm dying. What you touched on there that seems to be a lot of the things that carry over to what I'm seeing as well is, I mean,
Mm,
our population is generally like has this general trend of becoming less conditioned. I mean, the sedentary lifestyle brings us to the
definitely.
point where, yeah, like you said, squat mechanics. Let's not even talk about squat mechanics, right? Let's talk about
Hmm.
the sheer strength, the ability, right, to
Yeah.
lower yourself towards the ground and pick yourself back up. I mean,
Hmm.
back in the days, and like I'm not that much older than you. I'm 33, right? So I talk
Yeah.
like I'm aged, but back in the days, like it was like a punishment to be inside, and now
Oh
it's at
yeah.
this point like where as long as I have my cell phone, it doesn't matter if you stick me in a 4x4,
Yeah.
cube. So we see this overall like trend of deconditioning, which then we all understand that if we don't have a certain amount of strength within our legs, then it doesn't matter what kind of movement or motor programs we have because we don't have the strength to support those, right?
100%. Yeah.
So and that's what I'm seeing these kids now is like, yeah, they might know how to squat, they might know how to walk, but
Yeah.
they don't have the strength to do it. Like
Oh,
physically, don't
100%.
have the strength. So then they go out
Exactly.
there and they do all the things that you're talking about, and they
Hmm.
jump around, they get this valgus strain, and that inward buckling of the knee for those people that don't know what valgus is, and we just see these catastrophic injuries time after time. Again, non-contact wise.
For
Um,
sure.
I'm not really even sure where the heck that whole tangent went to, but somehow we were
That's
talking about how we
interesting.
view
Yeah.
injuries, right?
I mean, if
But
you think about it, like Gray Cook, right? He, is the inventor of the FMS testing. He wrote the book Movement, right? He's got
yeah,
the performance pyramid, right? And you've got a three-layer tiered pyramid. It's a great way to sort of view what an optimal athlete should be, right? The base of that first pyramid is your movement quality. And then you've got the second tier, which is your ability to produce something that we can quantify, your strength levels, your ability, your 3-rep max, power clean, something that we can measure your strength levels. And then you've got the top tier, which is that skill, right?
Yeah.
Now, in a basic pyramid, the base is wide, middle is a little bit smaller, the top's going to be obviously the most narrow. And that's, I guess, if you would consider an optimal athlete, they're very balanced.
Yeah.
However, because we've conceptually rearranged our athletic priorities so much, not even our athletic priorities, our societal priorities of what we need to be doing, that base, the first base of movement quality
Right.
is so small.
It looks
Our
more
second
like
base,
it looks more like the the monument in
exactly,
DC.
yeah, seriously, yeah. I mean, talking about strength, right? What you just talked about, our second tier is so small because all we want to do, I mean, I've got kids that come into our clinic and I'm like, all right, afterwards, they're maybe having some shoulder pain. We put them on ice. They're like, hey, can I go get my cell phone and sit down for 10 minutes? Their 4-year-old little brother's got an iPhone sitting down
Yeah.
waiting for them to get done. And I'm like, this is, we've conceptually rearranged our priorities to think that, hey, that top tier is the only thing that we need to worry about.
My niece is 6 and she knows how to use a cell phone probably better than I do.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Still, remember when you got your first cell phone? You're like probably in, sophomore year of high school now or something, like when you first started driving.
Yeah.
You could play Snake on it.
I remember beepers. Did you have a beeper? Did you ever have a beeper?
I did not have a beeper.
A pager?
I was joking around with my friend the other day because we were talking about his high socks were not cool, or they're cool now, right? But back in middle school, right, you couldn't wear high socks.
Yeah.
Right, you had to turn your socks.
People
under.
are tucking their pants now too. That was like that was like a
Oh,
no-go
yeah.
for a long time.
That's not cool. But I joked with him. I was like, "Yeah, you're gonna pull a Tamagotchi out of your pocket now."
I think I had a beeper for about 3 months, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
And I never even every time that the service was so bad, every time I would I would get these like 8 pages like 10 days later and be like there's no
That's
point
funny.
in having it anyway.
That's
But then
funny.
very shortly afterwards, cell phones came out. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I think Gray Cook is an outstanding figure in the culture of what we're doing, and I think that he puts things out there that obviously are measurable. I do think that overall as a society we need to go back to those fundamentals, which will overall improve our injury rates and allow us to build better skill. I make this like dumbed down version. I say, listen, you can't build stone houses on straw foundations, right?
100%.
And basically that's what we end up seeing. We see a whole bunch of straw foundations, and then people want to put this miraculous marble building on top of it. But here's an interesting thing. I'm sure you see this with some kids. You ever look at the kids that are just good at every sport, right? Like every sport they play. Like when you're growing up, that kid that's just like, it doesn't matter. You play basketball, you play hockey, you play track and field, wrestling, soccer, golf, whatever it is. Like they're just like pretty good at every one of those.
Yeah.
And if you look at them, it's not that they're better than everyone else, like skill wise. It's that their foundational, like functional movements and like functional strength is just so far surpassed to the people of their age. Right, so it just makes them look so good. And in reality, they get caught up to as other kids start to develop, and they find that whatever sport might be best for them. But at one point, and still probably in at a lower level, they're pretty damn good at every sport.
Well, and I think that really calls to the big thing of early sports specialization. I see kids, soccer's a big thing out in Kansas City, and we see kids that come out and they're like 10 years old and they play fall soccer. They've got winter league. They've got spring league. They play full year-round soccer. Now, obviously, they're going to advance in their soccer skill, but as a movement, quality whole, you throw them on a basketball court and they look like crap.
Yeah.
So like I think as a society, like we've talked about, I mean, a lot of times we want to specialize so young because little Johnny's going to be a major league soccer player
because their
one day.
freaking parents have like
100%.
Derek Jeter syndrome. They think that this is like my made up disease, right? So I call it Derek Jeter syndrome. It's like the parents that come in, they think their kid's the next Derek Jeter, right? And I'm like, listen, it's awesome that your kid is great at 13. He doesn't need to go to 3 travel teams and a camp and this and that.
Exactly.
And first of all, I understand that pitch counts are important, but you shouldn't even have a pitch count at 13 because the kid shouldn't be throwing enough at 13 in which you need to hold him back on pitch counts. Like it's just like let that kid develop and let them develop in a balanced, organized fashion. Like, listen, there was a reason why kids back in the day that played football and soccer and baseball, all in different sports, they developed more evenly. Like, there wasn't
Yeah.
these huge asymmetrical imbalances because they weren't just throwing baseballs, off a
Exactly.
mound, off their one leg, off their one arm, off their one rotational direction. They were doing, it's football time. I'm going to run. I'm going to catch. I'm going to do this. Oh,
Exactly.
hey, it's soccer time. I'm going to use my legs more and use my arms.
Hmm.
Uh, that stuff just drives me batty. Like, I want to tell the
Yeah.
parents, like, listen, your kid's probably going to suck. All right, just get this over your head. It's awesome that he's really good right now at 13, but
Yeah.
look, he weighs 10 more pounds than everybody else, and he's 4 inches taller. So he's really not that much better, okay?
Yeah.
Your kid sucks.
That's going to catch up to him
Yeah.
eventually.
And so get that through your head, and then if
Yeah.
he turns out to be the next Derek Jeter, be really surprised, because that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to, like, put kids down and say, like, I'm going to have people jumping on telling me, like, I'm such a bad person. I don't really care. But it's like, it's the truth of it. The reality of the matter is, you can't predict at an age of 13, he could be the most phenomenal player in any sport in the world.
Yeah.
At the age of 13, what is it, like, come on, what is that?
Well,
What does that
sure, you
mean
got
when
to
you're
think
30?
about burnout too. I mean, that kid's
Right.
going to be playing year-round sports. I mean, talking about, you said, pitch counts, right? We see a ton of kids with elbow pain, right,
Yeah.
at such a young age. I mean, the rise in Tommy John surgery for high school kids is crazy.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, right, these kids, they play summer ball, then they do fall ball, then they do pitching lessons in the wintertime, and then they do spring ball too. I mean, they're constantly pitching.
Yeah.
And when, obviously, that kid that's pitching, he's obviously a great athlete too, right?
Right,
So when he's done
absolutely.
pitching, where's he going to play?
He's playing everything else, right?
He's going to go play catcher.
Uh-huh.
So then he's throwing how many throws every single game?
And then football season, if he does play it, he wants to be quarterback.
Exactly. I saw a demographic at the U.S., and it had sort of the hot spots for where pitchers in the major leagues grew up. And it was a really thin divide. All the pitchers, most of them, that made it to the major leagues were from the northern states, not from the southern states. It's really funny because when you looked at the position players, the skilled players, right, shortstop, second base, most of them were from farther south in the U.S. So when you think about it, what are those pitchers in the north doing? In Minnesota, right? In Chicago, right? They're pitching summer, maybe a little fall, spring, but they're not playing year-round baseball. They have to play hockey or basketball. They're doing something else and allowing that arm to calm down. I heard a doctor one time say that every single time you pitch, you have enough force to tear your UCL. Right? Now, obviously, there's a lot of other factors that come into play to be able to slow down your arm and decrease the amount of force on that UCL. But every time you throw, it's like, those pitch counts thing you used to click, pitch count, pitch count. Well, every single person has sort of a set number of pitches that their UCL can sustain before it goes.
I've heard a similar statistic about that with long jumpers, triple jumpers.
Really?
Because they put like something, man, I have to double check this, but somewhere around like 1,200 pounds of force through on that second bound through their Achilles. So imagine like if I just took you and I put like 1,200 pounds of force through it, it would tear off. But obviously this is through years of applying that stimulus to their body. But yeah, so exactly what you're talking about, which brings me to like such a huge fact that I don't think many people realize is that is that the exercise, it doesn't matter whether it's the lifting exercise or the baseball exercise, football exercise, the CrossFit exercise, right? The exercise is the stimulus for adaptation, and I don't think people understand that. It's the recovery that allows you to accept that adaptation, right? So your body doesn't know the difference between you playing baseball or football or CrossFit or Olympic lifting. It just knows that it's doing something that's really fucking hard, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is really hard. How could I adapt to make that task easier? And then I go ahead and I'll start putting down more contractile tissue. I'll start adding tensile strength to my tendons, to my ligaments, because I seem to be getting this much stress over here. So I do that, and the body does that, right? But that takes years, right? It takes years for maturation of tissue. But that stimulus just supplies a demand for that adaptation, all right?
Exactly.
But it's the recovery which allows the adaptation to happen. And we think that oh man, if I'm not working out every single second, every single day, if I'm not throwing, if I'm not lifting, if I'm not doing this, I'm not going to get stronger. And that's not the truth at all. You
Exactly. If
just
you're not
you
recovering, you're not going to get that adaptation.
right. I mean, you need like enough. I know the sound. You just need enough stimulus to drive adaptation. Period. Like
Exactly.
how much is
Yeah.
enough? Enough that makes change. Like like,
Exactly.
and you can see it in bodybuilders. Like
Mhm.
bodybuilders probably are like some of the worst athletically developed people that you can think of, right? And listen, I have a bunch of friends that are bodybuilders. I make fun of them all the time, but they get,
Yeah.
they get out of, they can't walk up the stairs without
Yeah.
like breathing heavy, but they
Mhm.
look fabulous, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But here's the thing: is they are anabolic all day long. I have a buddy that wakes up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to have like oats and some steak, so he stays like I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like they'll go to bed at like 9 p.m., wake up at like 3, have food and like go back to bed. I'm like, I could never do that. But the point is that they don't really work out that much. I mean, yes, they
Yeah.
work out. He's a professional that he works out, so I'm not demeaning what he does. But
Uh-huh.
for the amount of working out, for the intensity of the exercise that he works out, he's doing
Yeah.
a lot more recovering. He's like, okay, well, I'm in
Oh
the
yeah.
gym for 3 hours. Good. I get in the gym for 3 hours. I do that work, and now it's just like, oh, what are you doing now? Laying on the couch, making sure I get my
Yeah.
aminos in, making sure I do this, making sure I take this
Mhm.
glove box full of different supplements I'm
Well,
taking.
that's definitely the biggest thing that I think a lot of kids, especially our young athletes, they don't understand is how important recovery is. I mean, you hear things like, Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant. The reason they're able to have such a long career in their sport is because they focus on recovery and the training outside of the regular sport.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got to think of hydration, your nutrition, your sleep. Sleep's huge.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, we also want to get short-term benefits and get there quicker, right? So you see different devices, and I'm not going to knock on the device, but like what is it, Mark Pro?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. But a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to get that and I'm going to recover better. And I'm like, look, you're not even sleeping 8 hours a night. You're eating like crap. You're not hydrating enough. Those are the most simple, like
Yeah.
human things that you need to be doing.
Trying
Then
to put
on
up a
top
wall
of
with
that,
no
then
bricks.
you can do that. Yeah, exactly.
Got
Like,
the
let's get the basics down first. And then if you're a really serious athlete, yeah, you can do. But let's not jump to that first. Let's get your basics down first. Just talking about the adaptation, right? A lot of people, I like bringing up a lot of points from Dr. Mel Sif. He wrote the book Super Training. Now, most people aren't going to read that book because it's a
yeah.
freaking nerd fest. But, he talks about the laws of super compensation, right? And the ability to understand that the stimulus for training has to be enough to be able to give you a very acute setback in your ability. So if you go to the gym and on Monday you're back squatting up to your 1 rep max, Tuesday you're probably not going to even come close to that for most people because you just worked your body so hard. You're going to get an acute or very fast decrease in the ability to produce power, produce your strength. But if you rest adequately at that time and your training stimulus was well enough beforehand, you should be able to see an ability eventually to be able to do above and beyond what you did on that first day. But like you said, it's got to be the right stimulus and it's got to be accompanied with the right amount of recovery to be able to get super
Right.
compensation and perform above and beyond what you were before.
Right, and that's individual to each athlete, right? Certain
Oh,
people recover
100%.
better, and
Yeah.
not only athlete, but age of that athlete, right? So we
Oh, that's
listen,
huge.
and that's why I'm going to jump on the CrossFit chain real quick, right?
Yeah.
That's why in 5 years you're not going to see a person that's over the age of 23 to 25 in the CrossFit Games. You're going to see that it's going to be 18 to 25. And like they're all gonna be these young kids that are 210
Yeah.
pounds and clean and jerk 400 pounds and run like a 5 minute mile. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're Rich Froning or not. I mean, obviously this guy is an extraordinary athlete. Like he surpasses everybody's expectations every single time he gets on there. But he will not recover like an 18-year-old.
Oh, definitely.
Especially when he starts hitting his he's not 30 yet, but as soon as he starts hitting his 30s, right?
Yeah.
Look at I don't know how much you follow CrossFit or whatnot, but like Neil Maddox. Neil Maddox is a perfect example. Another extraordinary athlete. I think he was 34 when last time he was at the games. I was working up there, and he tore his hamstring. Like
Yeah.
it's just like max
Well, especially the
effort.
format of the games, because the
Yeah,
format is it's so many workouts in a short amount of time. You
yeah,
can't recover
and
when you
that's
as you get older that quick.
exactly, and that's the thing is like those kids they just recover so much better than adults do. Like not like they're not
That's
we're all adults, but you know what I mean. Like 18
yeah.
year old recovers faster than a 35-year-old. That's just
Hmm.
the facts of life. It doesn't matter what kind of drugs you're on or anything else because like
For
it
sure.
like you can't beat Mother Nature. At least we haven't figured out a way yet, right?
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have a good coach for your training that understands the difference, right? If you've got an elite athlete, they're going to train differently than, a 12-year-old that's brand new to any sport, right? Now, obviously, I like to bring it back to weightlifting, but your 12-year-old that's just getting into weightlifting is going to have a much different volume approach, a much different skill or strength approach than that elite athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And because it all comes down to what they need stimulus wise to be able to continue that adaptation growth in what they also need recovery wise. Like,
Yeah, we all love the Russian front squat cycle and
yeah,
the Klokov cycle, and I'm like, hey, you guys realize that he's been lifting for like 30 years, right?
exactly. Yeah, that's the big thing is people don't understand. Like these elite athletes that they see, like a lot of people are like, well, we're going to train Bulgarian style,
Yeah,
right? Do you know that the
they did
type of
drugs, right? Did you
A,
realize
they were
that?
doing drugs, and they were elite athletes. Like that,
Right?
they ate, slept, drank. They did weightlifting. Like that's all they did.
Yeah,
And you get a kid, and he's like, "Well, I'm 25 years old. I'm working a full time job, but I train Bulgarian style. I do 2 a days." And I'm like, "Dude, you're not recovering enough. You're
yeah,
not probably taking the right drugs to be able to
yeah,
continue doing such a high level amount." That's like the squat every day program. Now, there's
yeah.
nothing wrong with squatting every day if you do it correctly with a good recovery,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I see the big thing I see is a lot of people are like, I squat every day. They're not using a training program. They're maxing out every day,
Yeah. You ever read
right?
that book? There's a book called Squat Every Day where this
Well, I
guy.
know, I know Travis Mash has written one, the
Uh,
weightlifting coach, and I haven't read it, but I do know he's a very good weightlifting coach. I'm pretty sure it's probably a very well written thing, but it's also you got to understand who it's written for,
I forget who
and
I want
you
to look
know,
that up.
yeah,
But
yeah, I believe Travis Mash wrote one.
I got it like I was on a plane once and I think I just got it from like reading books on my iPhone. It's like it's short, like maybe 60, 70 pages, and it was like squat every
Okay,
day. Where basically he talks about he maxes out every day, and this guy it's killing me, like I forget his name. He
hmm,
uh he was like bored like with the monogamy of
yeah,
the gym and stuff like that, and he was like monotony of the gym, not the monogamy. Monotony of the gym. So he's just
easy
like
man.
he wanted to like see he wanted to see like how long it would take him to like self destruct.
Yeah,
So he maxed out every day, like every
yeah,
single day, right?
uh-huh,
And he was expecting like all these things to go wrong and stuff like that. Now
yeah.
this is not telling everybody to go do this by any means, but yeah, he what he found out was that his hip pain went away, his knee pain went away, and he went
Yeah.
from like squatting like 400 to like 550 or something like
Oh
that in a
wow.
year. Like he did it all every day for like a year.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, I wonder why this happens and stuff like that." And then he went on to look at like other like Russian and Eastern Bloc countries like Olympic lifting cycles, although they like varied in intensity and what's the word, tapered, and
Uh-huh.
what's the word, ramped and tapered, but that's not the,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
although
Yeah.
they varied their training cycles with the ballistic lifts,
Uh-huh.
like their grinding movements of squatting and pressing, they did it heavy every single day, like
Yeah.
forever, like because it was considered like an accessory lift, not part of
Yeah.
the lift, right? So
Hmm.
that was like his whole like theory behind it, like why it
Yeah.
worked. Um,
Well, yeah, and I think the
I want
biggest
to
thing you
find
just have to be smart about it. Now, obviously, if he's maxing out every day, he's probably not going very high volume. He's
no,
probably just
like
getting those,
I think he only
you
just
know,
went to a max. I think he built to a max every
sort
day.
of like a daily max.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and the big things I tell people is there's nothing wrong with squatting every day. You just have to be smart about it. A, your technique has to be on point because obviously if your technique falters, you're going to have a lot of forces put on your body that could eventually lead to an overuse injury. But B, your recovery has to be on point too.
yeah.
Because, in order to sustain that much, intensity every single day, your body's got to be able to recover.
Oh God. Yeah. Which goes back to it. It's all about recovery.
Exactly. But I mean, like as an Olympic weightlifter, I mean, you think about the athletes that were training out at the Olympic Training Center. They train, 1, 2, 3 times a day, many days of the week. So obviously your body eventually can get to the point where it can sustain a lot of full body, especially leg lifting every single day and be completely safe with it. You're not going to get arthritis from squatting that often. That's the big thing that a lot of people think is they go, oh, you're squatting deep that often, or you're squatting, 5 days a week. Oh, you're going to get arthritis. And I've actually seen a bunch of research that looks at the knees of elite athletes, weightlifters, and powerlifters. And they found that the amount of arthritis in their knees were no different than general population.
Yeah,
A lot
I,
of times we
I I
think,
haven't
oh,
seen
there's
anything
so much.
about I haven't seen anything about knees. The only thing I've seen about was like distal clavicles. Like
I've seen that, and I've seen a little bit of arthritis in the low backs has been a
yeah,
little bit increased in elite weightlifters. But as far as the knees, I found that it was no different. I think they also saw maybe a little bit more in the hips when
yeah,
they were doing X-rays across population. But again, even then, even though there's signs of that arthritis via the X-rays, doesn't necessarily mean those people are even having a lot of those symptoms, because what are they also doing? They probably also have
right.
excellent mobility, functional mobility that are expressing it throughout their day, and they're supported by crazy strength.
Yeah,
So when you have all those together, those X-rays may not mean anything really.
exactly. And that's it. That's the big thing about identifying between what a picture says and an MRI says. Like like
Yeah,
people come in all the time and they'll hand me their MRIs and they'll be like, "Hey doc, yeah, so I got a disc L5S1." Okay,
yeah,
great. Yeah, awesome. Great.
yeah,
Let me take a look,
yeah,
And like yeah, no like you show up in the office and you're 35 or older. I mean, I think you have a 90 plus percentage of some type of abnormal disc finding on an
yeah,
X-ray and MRI.
yeah.
So by no means am I like saying or belittling what you're asking me to look at, but let's see if the clinical signs correlate with the picture that you got, right? Um,
Exactly. A lot of people jump straight to that MRI, the CT scan, and they're like, hey, my medical doctor checked this out, and they said that's the reason for your back pain. But when you look at it, I mean, there's been plenty of studies out there that have shown abnormal signs of disc bulge, herniation,
yeah,
arthritis, and that's not they have no pain.
yeah.
So obviously it's not, 100% of the time you have a disc bulge. Oh, that's the reason for your pain.
I'm gonna try to look up those statistics so I can put it in the info here.
Yeah.
But the percentage of like, so they're like they have studies out there. So the percentage of people that are asymptomatic that they find X-ray, MRI find like abnormal findings in, and
Yeah,
then
I actually have the link. I did my blog post last week was we're going over currently common squat injuries, and this current sort of series we're doing is low back pain. So it's low back pain part 2 on squatuniversity.com, and I have
um, yeah, send me that link. You have
the full article. I will.
so it's low back pain part two.
Low back pain part 2, and I have the linked article to that as well.
All
So
right.
I try to not only cite all the articles that I discuss in the different blog posts, but I also try to link them too, so people
Yeah.
can at least get to the full article, or at least the PubMed version, see the abstract.
I'm really trying to get better at that. I'm super lazy about it because
It
I
takes a long time.
well the thing is like I post every day. So like when I'm posting every day, like I don't need to do a fucking like a citation page like every
Yeah,
single day. It's more stuff. And I get
yeah,
people that shit on me for that and they're like, "Oh, hey, where'd you get this information?" Just
yeah,
email me. Like just email me and I'll send you the stuff
yeah,
that I did. But like
yeah,
it's just extra work. Like I'm not writing a book report. Like I'm writing this information.
yeah.
I want something about it.
And
But
yeah, the
uh,
blog posts that I do, they're usually once a week or once every other week. So I have a lot more time to get together those citations. The
yeah,
stuff that I post like on Instagram or whatnot, I don't put the article up there, because if you think about it, most people,
they don't
they're gonna
care
take your word.
anyway.
They don't care that you cited it from the British Journal of Medical
Yeah.
Science.
Well,
And
in
the
any
ones that
case,
do, I'll send you it.
right. Any case, I'm going to try to get. I will. In the info on this one, I'll get
Mhm.
your link up there for it. Low back pain part two link. Cool. All right. So what else do we have to talk about today? Yeah. What do you have to talk about? What do you want to talk about?
Man, anything really? Yeah.
Oh, I got the one that we haven't hit yet. So what are your
Okay.
views, right, on functional
Okay.
fitness? Now,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm gonna leave this untampered before I throw anything in there. So what's
Okay.
your views? Obviously, you know that I do a bunch in the functional fitness world. I don't
Yeah.
call it CrossFit anymore, so I don't get sued for like copyright infringement. But but what are your thoughts? Just get like
Man, I
brand.
yeah, I love it. I think a lot of people have a bad understanding when they're viewing it from the outside realm. They're like, oh, you see a lot of videos on YouTube, right, of people who are doing CrossFit or functional fitness, and they're doing like an axle clean or something. Their back's rounding, it
Yeah.
looks horrible. Their knees are caving in. They go, hey, that's CrossFit for you,
Yeah.
right? And they don't, obviously that's
Well,
social media
I think they
taking
call that
something.
like a continental clean, right? Like where you
Yeah,
like put it up on top of your
I
belt,
believe that's
and it's
actually a
like
strongman movement.
yeah, well,
That
continental cleans I think
yeah,
are strongman movements. Yeah, like but
yeah,
they like put it on the. That's why they make that big ass heavy belt. Well, not the
exactly.
only reason, but
Yeah,
it's like one of the things that they've thrown the axle on there, and then they like
yeah.
gosh,
Yeah.
it's
No, so obviously, and I think most people may have seen that video before. Obviously, that person wasn't trying to do a regular clean. They're
right,
trying to do that type of movement. And yes, it's probably the coach's fault for trying to have that person max out on movement they obviously weren't efficient with.
right.
But I think, if you take an overall view of functional fitness, man, it is amazing to see. Because if you think about it, I mean, obviously now we're getting a lot of high schoolers in that are, they're moving away from your general sports and getting into it, which is awesome. But before, right, it's, starting in the early 2000s and up till now, it's been a lot of your, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, even getting older, people who were doing what? They were going to maybe Gold's Gym. They were maybe, your Planet Fitness. They're trying to work out. They're trying to stay healthy. And things just aren't, they're not enjoying working out anymore. They used to be competitive people, and now they're just, they're not doing anything that they love. And they get into, and they find CrossFit, and they find something that is, the community's awesome. I mean, what other gym could you go to and you email the owner, you're like, hey, I'm in town. Can I drop by the box? And they let you come in and join the workout, and they're like, hey man, how you doing? It's nice to see you. You don't see that in any other community. It's awesome.
Right.
And then also the competitive side, you get this guy who's a 26-year-old former football player. He's got that competitive nature in him, and now that he's out in the workforce and he's being an accountant and sitting down all day, and he gets done, and a part of him isn't the person he used to be, and now he finds CrossFit. He's got that ability to sort of compete against himself, compete against someone else. Even if they don't have any aspirations to get to the games, it's different than just that,
Right.
continual go to the gym and work out. Now, as far as the ability to transform sort of our society, as I think, I've got people that come to me now and they're like, hey, my clean is off, my squat's a little bit, I can feel my knee. That person wasn't doing that 10 years ago. You can walk down the street now and ask most people, what's your 1 rep max snatch? 15 years ago, someone would look at you like, what the hell did you just say? I don't know what I
You
mean.
talking about my girlfriend?
Seriously, I mean, if you think the USA weightlifting
Hmm.
has gone from like a couple thousand members to
Yeah.
many thousands of members in 10 years
Look,
because of
you saw Tia Tooney from Australia,
yeah,
compete in the Olympics this year. Like,
crazy. Yeah,
and she's a CrossFitter. She's a
yeah,
professional CrossFitter. Granted,
yeah,
she's a Olympic lifter too, but
yeah.
I think that like the sports clubs and everything. I think the Olympic lifting community has thrived because of it. I mean, let's face it,
100%.
it was dead before that, right? Could you tell me
Oh yeah.
like, I mean, you go back to even like the 80s to 90s. I mean, Olympic lifting was not a huge. It was a very isolated community. Like.
Very, very, yeah.
So
I mean, it's grown so much, and it can definitely 100% be attributed to
I think that it's
CrossFit.
going to continue to grow, right?
Oh, 100%. I think,
Yeah.
in the next 2 decades, we are going to see the emergence again back to the 50s and 60s when America was a very big powerhouse in Olympic
Well, we
weightlifting.
have a whole bunch of people. We should be able to find some that can lift weights, right?
Exactly. You're going to see a lot of those kids right now. We're already getting them that are in high school, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm not going to go play football. I've already seen the movie Concussion with Will Smith. That freaks me out, right?" And they see these guys, and there's money coming into it now.
Yeah. And
Like
CJ,
it's not.
it's like CJ. That kid is like,
CJ Cummings is an amazing athlete,
oh
and
my
how young he is,
god!
right? And you've got social media's now blowing it up, and people are emulating
It makes it cool.
these
Like it makes
lifters.
it like it may inspire. I shouldn't say it makes it
Exactly.
cool. It's inspirational. Like
It's
watching
very
a kid
inspirational.
that is how old is he? 17 now.
Oh, he's younger than that. I
Younger than
think he's
that,
only 14
16,
or 15.
15. And what is
Yeah,
it
I don't think he's
like?
16 yet.
And he like throws weights around like they're like little Legos. You
Yeah,
know, I actually that's what you call it. Maddie. What's her last name?
Matty Rogers.
Maddie Rogers. But
Hmm.
she just put up like the other day. And she like did sets of 10 or something front squat like 297, and I was
Crazy.
like 297. I was like 10 rep 297. I was like
Yeah.
I honestly don't think that I could do that. Like I haven't
I'll
tried.
tell you this. Weightlifting is the most humbling sport you can ever be in.
I'm just like,
Because the second you think that you're like, oh wow, I did really, really well today. And it's good to like obviously set personal goals and to be able to break them. But the second you maybe try to get a little bit of a big head on yourself, you're gonna see some kid that's 13 years old that does that with ease, not
yeah.
even close to his max. So it's a very, and that's why I love it. It's a very humbling sport, but in the end, everyone is a close knit group.
Right.
Everyone's encouraging everyone. There's not like, yeah, there's some sort of those tussles, like, as far as, different egos, but everyone as a whole is encouraging everyone.
Right.
And everyone, the community is
And I think
awesome.
that's the parallel between CrossFit and the lifting community, right? Is that they
Mhm.
both are very encouraging to each other, especially within their gyms, right?
Oh, definitely.
I'm not fully immersed into like the Olympic lifting community as far as like if I went to a different gym or something like that. I
Mhm.
Olympic lift in the CrossFit gym, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know if like I went to a different gym, in Minnesota, right? If
Mhm.
everybody be like, oh hey, good job, da da da. I don't
Yeah.
know if that would be the same way, but I know
Yeah.
that at least within my gym and what I see within other lifting communities is like, man, they're just always so positive towards each other. You never hear
Definitely.
somebody be like, like that guy, like, you will not make this putt, right? You never see somebody like,
Yeah.
jerk it, it's gonna fall on your head, like like you
Yeah.
never see that type of stuff. You always see
Yeah.
like people encouraging. So that's awesome, and I think that will hopefully that trend will continue, because man, the rest of our America, we're raising obesity rates by 3% a year, cholesterol
Yeah.
rates by I think 6. Like
Yeah.
like blood pressure is up there as well. So
Yeah. Well, the
hopefully
thing
we
that I
get these
think is so
small
good
organizations
about,
that do that.
yeah, the thing I think that's so good also about the CrossFit community is it's not just gym. It's not just training hard. Like there's also this education that everyone strives to get better in nutrition. There's so many different aspects. There's the educational thing that I think you miss at a lot of gyms. They may have like, all right, we got a class today at this, but like, I mean, how many CrossFit gyms host seminars? Hey, we've
Yeah.
got a nutritional seminar this weekend. Hey, we've got a weightlifting seminar. We've got, I mean, all the different aspects of the CrossFit certifications that they have. Their goal is to be able to help people better themselves, in so many different avenues, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Well, while we're on that kind of a little bit, I want to
Yeah,
before we run out of time, I do want to be able to talk about Squat University. Obviously, Squat
yeah.
University is how you kind of got on my radar.
Mhm.
And I saw some of your stuff and everything that was going on. I liked it, and that's why I reached out to talk to you about it.
Thank you.
So tell me first of all, how did you start Squat University? What platforms are you on? I know that you're pretty much on
Yeah.
everything, right?
So I started Squat University actually a year ago this past week. So it was October, I think, 8th I started. And basically, it's an online platform dedicated to helping everyone find their true strength or the best version of themselves by teaching the squat. Now, I always say, true on our website, which is a
Wait, say that
blog
one more
website.
time.
That's our main.
I got a little cut off there. I'm not sure if you did too.
It's called their true strength,
Yep.
finding your true strength. Now, there's a quote by the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, and it says, "No man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. It's a shame for a man to go through life without finding the true strength they're capable of."
You have that on your ribs?
I should have that somewhere, right? I need to get a tattoo of that. That'd be good. But when you think about it, right, you think, all right, so true strength, right? So instantaneously, most people in our society today, we think of moving a lot of weight,
Yeah.
or we think of production values. And we've already talked about it before. Right now, we've conceptually rearranged our athletic priorities to think that production values are the main thing, right? I mean, when most people think of a squat and you think of true strength, what, Ray Williams just squatted 1,005 pounds this past week?
Yeah, I saw
That's
that.
freaking crazy,
Mm.
But the thing is that what I found through my experience being an Olympic weightlifter and my experience being a physical therapist is that when we value our production to such a high value and we forget about how we're getting that production, we devalue our movement quality. I think that's where we find the big problem. And we do two things. A, we increase our ability to become injured. Now, obviously, in weightlifting, it's a slower speed. Powerlifting, you're not going to have that torn ACL most of the time, like a football player, or basketball player. But you are going to see those chronic overuse injuries. You're going to find back pain, knee pain, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the worse you move, quality-wise, the more chance you have at sustaining an injury like that.
Absolutely.
And also, if you move poorly, you also limit your potential of what you are capable of.
Right.
So the
Lower
more, the
ceilings.
better technique, exactly. The more technique you have, the better work you have at that, the more potential you have to lift even more weight. So
Mm-hmm.
the big thing I wanted to do with Squat University was to sort of give people sort of that platform to understand how to move well and how to perform well. So we sort of go about it a couple ways. A, I want to make sure that people know technique. So, I try to break down technique in the most simple ways possible. I want to be able to help people from my experience as a physical therapist illuminate problems in their movement and figure out what it is that's wrong so that they can fix it. So if you've got a bad squat, I want to be able to help you understand, hey, it's your ankle mobility. Here's a quick, easy screen that you can do at home to see if you have an ankle mobility issue. What is it? It's a joint restriction, a soft tissue restriction, maybe a little both. Here's two things that you can do to efficiently fix that to help improve your squat quality. Then with the help of your coach, you're going to be able to squat a lot more and a lot safer. And the thing is, I feel like there's a lot of information out there, and I'm not the only one putting out great information. I've loved the stuff that you've put out on your website, in the Instagram, Dr.
you.
Ryan DeBell, right, with the
Oh,
Movement
yeah.
Fix. Everyone out there's putting out great information, but I wanted to be like, hey, let's be efficient and effective with what we do. If you've got 15 minutes to warm up, I want you to know exactly what you need to do for your body to get you, moving as well as possible. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
walk into a CrossFit gym or your weightlifting gym and see 15 people lined up all doing banded hip mobilizations, because maybe only one or two of those people have a joint restriction in their hip and need to do that banded joint mobilization. So it's all about sort of laying it out and teaching and educating people, hey, this is what you need for your body to be able to move as well as possible. Now, once we're moving possible, let's lift some heavy ass weight, because I want you to, be able to squat a ton of weight and clean a ton of weight and do so well, but we've got to be able to move well first. So that's the big thing with Squat University, why I started it. We are on, my original platform was a WordPress website. It's a blog website. I think we started blogging about once a week, just different things. We worked our way up through the body, sort of that joint by joint process. We've covered technique and a bunch of different types of squats. We've debunked some myths like, squatting deep is bad for your knees. Not true. Here's why.
Right.
And then also we're on all different Twitter, Instagram, I think is our biggest platform as far as the amount of people that follow us. And I interact with people daily on that, Facebook and Snapchat. Also.
Yeah, awesome. You just on every social media platform there is, I think,
I
right?
try to. Yes.
I'm not
yeah.
sure if there's anything else. Maybe the Vine or something like that.
Maybe one day if I have some more hours in the day, I can jump on the Vine.
Right. Well, that's awesome. I mean, congratulations on success with that, and
Thank
super
you.
stoked. Any last words that you'd like to leave people with?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing, and I've probably already said it like 5 times a day, I have a habit of repeating myself with my co-author, Dr. Kevin Santana. He reminds me daily not to repeat the conceptual ideas that I spout out a lot. But it would be for everyone to understand, hey, it's not about how much is on the bar. It's about how much is on the bar when you're moving well. And when you can think about that and you can approach the barbell every single time to perform a perfect rep, things are going to change. You're going to start moving better. You're going to feel better, and you're going to really increase the potential of what you're capable of doing.
That's awesome. Dr. Ryan, I just want to thank you so much for jumping on the show. Appreciate you, coming on here and babbling along with me a little bit and giving some information, especially because I know it's earlier there. So hopefully everyone out there got something out of this, and we'll see you guys next time. And until tomorrow, we are optimizing function to optimize performance.